What if I told you that what you know and understand about vampires is actually not accurate to the lore of them? Since the idea of the vampire arose, there have been different ideas of it that have prevailed in modern media, especially in modern cinema, and these ideas do not trace back to the lore. They don't trace back to the folk tales, which is why for Nosferatu, Robert Eggers decided to go in, research it, break down this mythical creature, and rebuild it from the ground up. If you don't know me, hi. I'm Taya, and I love cinema and everything surrounding it. I love diving into the history of it and the making of it, especially the making of it, and just what it takes to make our favorite films, TV shows, the things that we watch and the things that we consume. This is a series that I don't really have a name for yet. It's a work in progress, but I'm leaning towards that's a wrap, but I'm sure that that's already trademarked somewhere, so TBD. I'll update you guys. Hopefully next time we have an answer, okay? But today we are diving into the history and the making of Nosferatu. And so we're gonna dive into the folklore of vampires and how that applies to the making of Nosferatu and how Robert Eggers and the cast and crew used the folklore to develop Nosferatu. I'm also gonna do my makeup while I yap because it keeps me stimulated. All of the products will be linked below. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we get in too deep into the fascinating production of Nosferatu, I want to explore just a teeny bit into the history of vampires, just to have a better understanding and appreciation for the true art that went into this film, you know? I don't know about you, but I just think that it's cool to learn about these things. It might be like a hyperfixation, and I love to like watch the movie, learn about these things, and then go back and watch it again, and it's just like, I just developed more of an appreciation for it. Vampires have haunted our imaginations for literal centuries, but how much do we actually know about the myth, where they came from, why this myth arose in the first place, right? And let me tell you, we don't know much. Everything you know about vampires right now, clean slate, because Twilight, the Edward Cullen stuff, get rid of it. So in modern media, vampires are often depicted as these beautiful, emotional, intelligent, very clean-cut creatures who blend right in with other people. You can't really tell that they're like undead. They're hot, real hotties. Vampires way back then when they started, from the myth, from the folklore, they were not cute, okay? They were ugly. They don't have fangs. It was just teeth, like normal decaying, rotting, right? These are undead people. So they had teeth like us, or have teeth like us, thought to have teeth like us. And so they would bite into people and it was just messy, you know? The vampires that we see on screen, they have fangs. They have these sharp teeth that can make these clean, concise incisions. You just suck the blood right out of the veins and then you're good on your way. No, like these vampires would take chunks out of people. It was not this sensual thing that developed for modern media. I don't even know how that happened. Like, when did that happen? Who decided that vampires were gonna become hot? That's what I should have made this about. Their bodies are swollen from recent feedings. So drink the blood and then bodies swell up. Ew, okay? But before we get too far into the differences between our modern media vampires and the folkloric, I wanna talk about where vampires came from. Vampire hysteria hit Central and Eastern Europe particularly hard in the 18th century. And by vampire hysteria, I mean people were freaking out thinking that vampires were just walking around sucking people's blood. Think like the Salem witch trials, but vampires. They believed that they were going after their family members first. And so it was like being afraid of your loved ones that had passed. Like, what an awful thing to experience. That must have been so traumatizing. This also happened to be when there were plague outbreaks that decimated entire villages. And if we put two and two together, what's the plague? You know, it's actually this undead creature that suddenly exists. And I'm not being mean. I'm like genuinely, like, it's the 18th century. Vampire hysteria was at its peak during a time when medical knowledge was limited. People didn't understand the natural processes of death, like decomposition specifically, which can cause hair and nails to appear longer as the skin recedes. Porphyria, I don't know if I'm saying that right. a condition that causes sensitivity to sunlight and blisters on the skin, were likely misidentified as signs of vampirism. Rabies, with its symptoms of aggression and a sensitivity to light, also played a role in shaping the myth. Tuberculosis, also a big one, is often associated with coughing up blood and a pale, wan appearance, which led people to believe that the sick were drained of life by a vampire. The connection between illness and vampires became even more concrete when bodies of the dead were exhumed. People found strange signs like blood at the mouth or the body's unnaturally preserved state that seemed to confirm their suspicions. In fact, the symptoms that we now understand of decomposition, such as receding gums or bloating, made corpses appear more alive, which just fueled the belief that these myths were not myths. I promise that this is all going to tie into Nosferatu. I promise that when you go to see this film, you're going to be like, wow, this makes so much sense. During this time, the concept of being a vampire wasn't about immortality or being hot. It was about being scared. People were scared. The vampire became a symbol of disease, death, and the fear of the unknown. People were desperate for an explanation of what was happening. And the idea of this undead creature, that was their explanation. This was their scapegoat. In a weird way, it was their comfort. Okay, this is gonna be my favorite part because this was fascinating for me. All right, we're gonna debunk the myths about, well, I guess the whole thing's a myth. We're gonna debunk some things about vampires because this image that modern media has painted about vampires, it is so far from what they originated as, okay? We see these creatures that are intelligent and calculated, and when vampires originated, they were dumb. In the old tales, vampires were driven by hunger in almost an animalistic sort of way. They didn't have the polished, sophisticated aura to them. There were also no fangs like we see now. I already talked about this. Those came much later in the literary adaptations. And I do believe that to be like a vanity thing for these adaptations. And because they're dumb, why do I feel bad saying that? I feel bad calling them dumb. Oh my God. It's not like they're watching this, right? And most of their weaknesses are not canon to the lore either. Like not being able to cross a threshold without being invited, that was not a part of the lore, which I really thought that would be one because it just seems so specific. But like those vampires, they were so dumb, like they wouldn't even know what a threshold was. They could enter through any gap no matter how small it was, which is a very important thing to remember. Most of this is. You should be taking notes. And I hate to be the one to break this to you, but burning up in sunlight isn't canon either. What's so interesting about these things? They're just like glamorized zombies at this point. Kind of lame. No wonder they spiced it up a little bit. Garlic though. Good news on the garlic. That is something that was a weakness for them, but it was never really specified in the folklore. It was more of a pungent odor. There was a belief at the time that vampires were associated with the spread of miasma. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry. I am not a historian, okay? Miasma is a poisonous vapor that was thought to cause disease. So strong smells like garlic or spices would keep the vapor away. That's what was believed. Don't believe we see any of that in Nosferatu, but I just thought that it was interesting. And we don't have much that actually is canon to the folklore, so I figured I wanted to throw something in there. Something that also differs greatly in the folklore is how vampires, like, there was not a dramatic neck bite that took place. I mean, I'm sure in some, but that wasn't like the main. The neck was not the main place. These vampires were more about suffocating their victims. So it was believed that they would often strangle their prey, people, or in some regions even sit on their chest until they couldn't breathe anymore. And then it was then that they would feast. And this was by way of a bite on the left side of the chest, over the heart, sometimes between the eyes even, just depended on what they were feeling that day. Whatever they were craving. I wonder if it tastes different. Not that I want to know. Whoa. To them, you know? I don't wonder. I don't. Okay, the last piece of vampire lore that I'm going to touch on before we jump into Nosferatu specifically is on the physical aspects that made up a vampire, because this is also going to apply to Nosferatu. We've already touched on the teeth, but there was also the decomposing of the body. So people, when they were checking graves to see if a body had turned into a vampire, they would look for a decomposition of the body, if it was decomposing properly or if it was kind of maintaining its aliveness. They looked for hair and nail growth, or even like a shedding of nails to reveal new nails, which we already talked about this, but it was like they would believe that there was growth even though it was really just the skin receding back because, you know, their body was decomposing, but they didn't really realize that. So they would check to see if they had shed their outer layer of skin to reveal a paler layer underneath. And they would check to see, this one's a little obvious, they would check to see if there was blood by the grave. That was their dead giveaway. They were like, is there fresh blood around here? Is there fresh blood on the body? By their mouth, maybe even? More specifically, in Slavic tradition, if a corpse had its mouth open, that was a sure sign that it had turned into a vampire, but it didn't stop there. According to some tales, the vampire wasn't just going to rise from its grave and head to the nearest village to feed. No, it often started by preying on its family members. I touched on this earlier. That's terrifying. Like, who made up these tales? Usually these folkloric tales have purpose behind them, or they had purpose behind them to kind of like scare kids into like going to bed or listening to their parents or just acting civilized. There was no purpose to this. It was just hysteria. They were just causing panic. Anyways, so it was believed that they would prey on their family first. How amazing is that? And when you watch Nosferatu, yeah, take note of that, okay? No spoilers here, but just take note. In some stories, it said that the vampire would try to be with its spouse again, even leading to horrific offspring that, according to legend, if they did have offspring from that, would have, they would have no skeleton. Ew. Ew. It's just transformed so much. It started as this horrifying, gruesome story, and somehow it's become this almost sensual, hot icon that people kind of want to get with. I mean, I'm part of the problem, don't get me wrong, but why are we like this? But in those early tales, vampires were far more grotesque, stumbling around in the night, driven by nothing but an insatiable thirst for blood and hunger. Moral of the story, I don't care how cute they are. Stay away. Okay, we finally get to talk about Nosferatu and how all of everything we just talked about applies to the film. No spoilers ahead. I have been very careful because I know that this is releasing before the movie is actually officially coming out, before opening weekend. And I want you guys to experience this film with just a little bit more knowledge going in so you can have a little bit more appreciation for it, and not with me spoiling it, because like people who spoil things freaking suck. If there is anything with like a little bit of a light spoiler, I will give you a heads up and then just skip ahead about 30 seconds and you'll be a-okay. So Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. It is horrifying. By the way, I refer to everyone by their first name because referring to them by their last name just feels a little too profesh for me. Not a fan of it. I also had the privilege of speaking with, sorry, this is probably what I should have prefaced with too. I had the privilege of speaking with the cast. Focus Features and Nosferatu, the teams for them, invited me out to speak with the cast briefly about the Nosferatu film, which is absolutely insane. I did only have 4 minutes with them. I had 4 minutes with Robert Eggers and Willem Dafoe paired together, and I had 4 minutes with Lily Rose Depp, Emma Corrin, and Nicholas Hoult. So it was very quick. I did not get many questions in. There was a point where I meant to ask Nicholas a question, and then I got a time card, so I just said something really dumb to him and didn't get to finish that out. You guys will know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes. But it's so crazy! I can't believe that this is my life. But so that's gonna be kind of intermixed with the following. But yeah, we're gonna dive into the making of Nosferatu. Robert was inspired from a young age to tell the story of Nosferatu. In high school, he adapted Nosferatu into a stage performance where he actually played Count Orlok. which is so cool. I would love to see video footage of that. And it was that experience that sparked his lifelong desire to bring Nosferatu to the big screen. So that was approximately 30 years ago. So this has been a project that he has been looking forward to and working on and manifesting for a minute. Now, after 10 plus years of really researching, developing, working on the script, writing the script for it, he's finally done it. Robert Eggers, hi.
Hi.
You love doing research into your films. I actually heard that you have a whole library of vampire books at this point. Yeah. And amongst doing this research, you found out that there are a lot of tropes about vampires that exist in modern cinema that don't necessarily come from the lore. Can you talk more about why you decided to break down those tropes?
You know, the main reason why I wanted to do something different is because the vampire in this movie needs to be actually scary and have a kind of power that a vampire hasn't had in cinema for a long time. You know, the vampires that have been really drawn big audiences and really beloved lately are more sort of relatable outsiders instead of like scary villains. So I wanted to go back to the folklore, to a time when people actually believed in vampires and thought they were real and thought they were scary. And, you know, they look like putrid corpses. And so I asked myself, what does a dead Transylvanian nobleman look like? And that's how we developed what Bill would look like. But there are some interesting things that, you know, like, this doesn't happen in our film, but vampires in folklore very often turn into wolves and werewolves like Dracula does in Stoker's novel, but they never turn into bats, you know? They don't drink blood from people's throats, they drink blood from people's chests. You know, there's a lot of interesting things.
Robert had a big focus on creating a distinct telling of the story with a purpose, so much that he wrote out a novella, basically a novel, with extensive backstories for the characters and scenes that would never see the light of day. But he did this so that he could understand why this movie needed to be made in the first place. And I respect that so much, because how many remakes, sequels, and just movies in general get made today that really, like, why? He really wanted it to feel like there was purpose and intention behind it. And so he took his time with it and he figured it out. He obviously used that to help with developing the script and the writing and the intention behind the film, the overall plot of the film. And it's like, oh my God, it shows, like, it was brilliant. And so he landed on Ellen, who is Lily Rose Depp's character. He said, quote, "As an evolution of the story, the thing that is most significant is that this is Ellen's film. Ellen is a victim not only of the vampire, but of the oppressive societal norms of the 19th century. So Eggers focuses on her emotional and psychological torment, which is it's a breath of fresh air. Those who are familiar with vampire stories, vampire retellings, it is a breath of fresh air for that. Robert is well known for his deep dives into history and research for his projects. And he says that this is because the act of research is something that he truly enjoys. Part of it is about eliminating decisions. He says that you don't need to invent anything, you just look for it and you find it. And this would be why the Count Orlok that we see in Robert's Nosferatu is so different and so terrifying from anything that we've seen previously. Without spoiling too much, so just the tiniest bit of a spoiler warning, I do want to touch on just some of the folkloric accuracies that we see with Count Orlok. I know that they have not revealed any of what Count Orlok looks like in the marketing, and so if you don't want any of that spoiled, I would say skip past this. I would skip probably a minute from now. So the stereotypical neck biting, no. Not present. He does not have the classic fangs, and he doesn't need an invite to enter any threshold, which all of those are accurate to the folkloric vampires. We skip past all of the media adaptations and we go all the way back to mythology. He broke it all the way down. He's also ugly. He's not cute, not hot. He looks undead. He looks like he woke up out of a grave. Because he did. Bill Skarsgård, our Count Orlok, I want to talk a little bit about his transformation because he underwent a lot. He spent about 3.5 to 4 hours each day of filming in the chair. The chair. It sounds so menacing and scary. No, the makeup chair. He spent 3.5 to 4 hours every day in the makeup chair. He had 2 to 3 people working on his head to transform that, and people would come in to work on his fingers, which were extended very long. He's got long fingers. I think I read somewhere, this might be wrong, check me on this, okay? I believe I read somewhere that they experimented with giving him 12 fingers instead of 10, but then they were like, that's kind of weird. No, you know what it was? I read somewhere that they experimented with giving him, I want to say like 12-inch long fingers, and they were like, that's too much. Yeah, I don't know how he sits and not do. I don't know how he does it. My sensory issues could never. I would go insane. I would go insane. And I did ask the cast what their initial reactions were when they first saw him as Count Orlok on set. This is what they said. What was it like seeing Bill Skarsgård, first reaction? There's a lot of speculation around what he looks like as Orlok, so we haven't seen that yet.
Have you seen the movie?
I have.
You have seen the movie,
yes,
okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You know what he looks like.
Yeah.
He's, like, petrifying. So, you know, I think it's, like, the Orlok that's in the movie is, like, the one that we were seeing in real life. There's, like, you know, no, like, special effects to, like, make him look the way that he does. He looked like that in real life. And so it was really impressive and crazy. And, like, obviously, all of the artists that worked on creating what he is physically are so incredibly talented and did, like, an insane job. And then Bill, building the character from the inside out, did an insane job. I mean, he made him so scary, but also, like, rooted the performance in so much history and, like, real information about, like, you know, folk tales of vampires, of, you know, from the dawn of time and everything, and made him also, like, feel kind of human. Like, there's, like, a humanity to him. You feel that this is, like, a person who was alive once and died and has been dead for, like, hundreds of years, and now he's back. And so I feel like you felt that just, like, seeing him. It was very, very impressive.
It wasn't the first time, but the third screen test when he was in the full makeup and the full costume, and I saw Bill, like, disappear, you know, and the darkness entered, and everyone who was standing around the monitor was like, oh, he's there, Orlok's there, the vampire's there. That was pretty incredible.
You know, actually, I saw him quite late because I don't have any scenes with him, except for at the very end I see him. So by that time, I had plenty of spoilers because I had seen pictures and people had told me and all that sort of thing. So
you never had to be terrified in person?
No. But,
You're lucky.
But I think it's a beautiful look, and it's different than any other Orlok I've seen. To embody the sinister essence of Count Orlok, Bill worked with a vocal coach to drop his voice an entire octave for this role. He wanted to add this otherworldly quality to the character's presence, and it worked. He was so scary that it scared Lily on set. Like, she knew what to expect, but it still scared her. She's valid for that. Let's talk about Lily Rose Depp, our gorgeous, gorgeous gothic angel. She did so good in this film. Like, I am so happy that she is our Ellen. She did the character so much justice, and let me tell you why. She transforms into the role of Ellen, and Ellen is the film's central conflicted figure, and it was no surprise why Lily was drawn to the role. She's always been very into gothic tales, and she said when she was initially reading the script I think this was before she auditioned, she could just see the whole story unfolding, and she was holding her breath the entire time. So she wanted to be in it. And during her audition, she drew everyone into the room so into her performance that people started crying. That's when Robert knew, like, yeah, that's our Ellen. And what had really made her audition unforgettable was that she was willing to go all in. She transcended herself into something otherworldly and demonic. And she actually worked with a movement coach to perfect Ellen's movements during the possessions. She learned Japanese Buto. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I did ask her about it, and this is what she had to say about it.
So that was a big part of the like character building process, because obviously it's like a huge part of my presence in the movie. And so we had an incredible movement coach. Her name is Marie Gabrielle Roti. She's amazing, and I did a lot of rehearsal with her. We had like 2 weeks of solid rehearsal, and so I did a lot of rehearsal with her. You know, choreographing all the movements, and also like trying to infuse all of them with like a, you know, like an emotion and like a certain part part of the arc so that it's like telling you something about the character. We also did a lot of the rehearsal like in the corset, because a lot of those scenes I'm like wearing a corset, which of course changes everything about like your movement and your breathing and all of that. So it was important to rehearse with the corset on, which is crazy. I have some like fun videos of me in like leggings and like a corset kind of like acting a fool.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, it's a total vibe. So yeah, that was
some fun videos of me and
Leggings and corset.
Her co-star, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, even said that watching her fully lose herself in the character was both chilling and mesmerizing. It's this raw, instinctual commitment that makes her portrayal of Ellen one of the standout performances in Nosferatu. It also stuck with me that he had said that she had no vanity to her in this film, which, as a woman in Hollywood whose livelihood and value is often based on vanity, is so, for me, is just so admirable, because she didn't have any vanity in this. She was so focused on portraying the story and her character, and oh my god, did it work. Like, she's incredible. Nicholas Hoult brings to life the character of Thomas. Thomas actually has one of the saddest arcs. Also, I'm gonna go through our stacked cast, and then we're gonna talk more about the similarities between the folklore and Nosferatu. But Nicholas Hoult, Thomas, very sad, okay? He is the one that journeys to Count Orlok, his castle, because he's like trying to sell him a house or something. He's a real estate agent, basically, okay, in the 19th century. He just wants better for his family. He wants Ellen to be happy. He wants money. He's trying to do better. Thomas is naive and he's full of optimism, but as Nicholas says, his character is, quote, unraveled by the horror he encounters, turning it into a heartbreaking tale of lost hope. Nicholas is such a sweetheart. Anyways, Nicholas is a longtime fan of Robert because of his immersive filmmaking, and he loves how he builds authentic, atmospheric worlds. I heard that you physically jumped at a Nosferatu screening recently. Is that true? You were so scared.
Physically and mentally jumped. At the premiere in Berlin, the first jump scare before the time.
Their face, yeah.
I jumped. I did. I was so embarrassed.
How large? On a scale of 1 to 10.
It was like...
Who were you sitting next to?
I was sitting next to Rob.
That was your jump?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was just a little, and then I was disappointed in myself because I was like, you knew that was coming. You're scared.
It shows it's good. It shows it works.
Yeah,
it works.
It is a terrifying film. Yeah, so I had 4 minutes with 3 people, and one of them was Nicholas Hoult, and that's what I said. Anyways, Nicholas acknowledges the weight of the film as it's been a lifelong dream for Robert, and so he was determined to make his performance live up to the significance of that legacy. No pressure. We also have Willem Dafoe that takes on the role of a professor that is brought on to cure Ellen. Oh, hi. You just have so much to say today. I love him. He's my favorite. He's my absolute favorite. Mostly because he has a lot of cats. Big cat lady, if you couldn't tell. Wow. He knew it was his time to shine. That's crazy. Robert has worked with William, oh my gosh. Did you know that Willem's, legal name is William, but Willem's a nickname and he just went with it? Anyways, Robert has worked with Willem in previous projects like The Lighthouse and The Northman, and he just loves him. They adore each other. Robert praises him for his energy and his focus, and he says that he's a great leader and supporter for the younger actors, which is so cute. I don't know, when I was interviewing him, he just had this energy to him. You know when you can just tell that somebody they're just genuine, they're just a good-hearted person? That's Willem. Willem said that he felt a personal connection to the character that he played because he knew that it was a role that Robert would want to play if he was an actor. We also have Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Emma Corrin. So if it's not apparent, the cast has such an appreciation for Robert Eggers and his ability to make immersive worlds. And I want to jump a little more into that because his filmmaking process is fascinating. In total, the production built about 60 sets, many of which were meticulously crafted to accommodate Robert's signature oneers. And when I say oneers, kind of think like a single shot, a long extended single shot. The cinematographer Blaschke, he's worked with Robert before and they love collaborating together. He works with Robert to create the oneers, and they have to work with the production designer, in this case was Craig Lathrop, to make the sets movable so that they could achieve that. And when I say movable, I mean like the ceilings and the walls were able to be moved and film certain shots continuously. There's a specific shot in Nosferatu that comes to mind, and no spoilers, but there's a scene where Lily runs from upstairs to downstairs, and you watch the camera follow her through the ceiling. You're right, she's upstairs, goes through the ceiling to the down. When I watched it, right, I was like, oh, it's, you know, they just did like a little transition thing, whatever. No, like that is a set that was built so that they could do that in one take. And I just think that it is the coolest thing in the world. And because of this, the attention to detail on set meant that every shot was like a delicate dance, is how Robert explained it. He said that if anyone does one little mishap, it all falls apart, but when they get it, it's so satisfying. Aaron Taylor Johnson describes it all as a team effort where everyone from the actors to the crew was committed to supporting each other. He also described it as it being like a dance where nobody wants to let anybody else down. That'd just be so much pressure. Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine. Blaschke, the cinematographer, said that the longer takes bring an intense focus to the work, creating this tension that made every moment on set feel even more alive. Also, the cinematographer Blaschke, I thought this is so random, just a little fact. He wanted to create this moonlit look, but authentically, and so he used actual candles to light scenes. I want to see BTS of that. I want to see how many candles it took to light up scenes. Like, was that a safety hazard? Was that a fire hazard? I don't know. How many candles did they use? It had to be a lot. Okay, I'm gonna finish my lip off camera because I cannot do this while I'm talking, so give me like 2 seconds. I could go on about Nosferatu all day because I think that the filmmaking process is so fascinating. I think so much of it ties back to the folklore. I think Robert Eggers is a genius and I respect what he does so much. But yeah, A, I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. You guys have to go see it first. And B, I should probably like go see sunlight or something because I've been sitting here for like 2 hours. So actually, it's dark out. I don't know what I literally have not left my house today. I need to talk to somebody. That's what I need to do. Robert Eggers, he did his research. He created a film with so many beautiful, terrifying layers to it. I want to watch it again. Oh my God. The rats that we see so frequently in the film, I believe that Robert Eggers is notorious for including animals as a symbol in his film, which I think is very cool too. But in Nosferatu, it's rats. And rats are a symbol to represent the spread of disease and evil. We have the historically accurate themes of the plague. We have a folklorically, is that a word, accurate vampire. We have Lily Rose Depp's best performance, and brother, is it a terrifying mix. Thank you to the team at Focus Features and Nosferatu for having me out to interview the cast and Robert. Hopefully this will prep you guys a bit for going to see Nosferatu, just to kind of understand what you're walking into and certain meanings behind certain decisions that they made for the movie. And you can turn to your friend or your partner or your mom or your dad or I don't know, whoever you go to see the movie with. You can yap to them about some fun facts about the movie while they're trying to enjoy it. Because I'm definitely that friend, so I support you in those endeavors. Oh, and I'm so sorry if I spoiled anything, like genuinely did not mean to. I'm so sorry if I did. That's a wrap on Nosferatu. I love you so much. Bye!